Stanford University.
Good morning. I'm Gary Steinberg, Director of the Stanford Neuroscience Institute, known as SINTN, and Chairman of the Department of Neurosurgery, and I'd like to welcome His Holiness and thank him for visiting us again at Stanford. We very much enjoyed your public lectures yesterday, as well as the more intimate interactions we had with you. I'd also like to welcome everyone in the audience today, and we hope you enjoy the symposium. So before we start, I'd like to remind everyone, these are key issues. Keep your ticket with you at all times. Be prepared to show it at the lunch distribution, which is off-site, and the tickets are going to be required for re-entry to the building after lunch and anytime during the conference. Emergency exits are located in the rear and the front sides. Silence your cell phones, silence your pagers, and if you must answer a call, go out to the lobby. The goal of our Stanford Institute for Neuroinnovation and Translational Neuroscience is to rapidly advance our understanding of the healthy and the diseased brain and spinal cord at all levels, from molecules to cells to neural circuits to behavior. We aim to pioneer new techniques and tools to probe and manipulate the nervous system and translate these discoveries into improved quality of life for patients with neurologic and psychiatric disorders. And importantly, we hope to translate these discoveries and make a difference in outcome over the next 5 to 10 years. So this is an aggressive program. And to accomplish this, we are fostering collaboration between about 150 very talented basic, translational, and clinical neuroscientists at Stanford. We've got a number of broad initiatives in our institute, and you can see them here, such as neural plasticity and repair, neurodegeneration and regeneration, cognitive and developmental disorders, and neuroengineering. And we're focused on certain diseases like pain and addiction, Parkinson's, spinal cord injury, blindness, autism spectrum disorders, Down syndrome, as well as a neuroengineering initiative. We're taking advantage of Stanford's expertise in these areas, both to dissect mechanisms and to repair the nervous system. However, one of the most important platforms and initiatives in our institute is what we call Neuroscience in Society. Initially, there was significant resistance from some of the scientists at Stanford to include this platform in our institute, since it's not using molecular biology or synaptic physiology techniques. It doesn't investigate a specific disease of the nervous system. However, I feel this is really an essential platform. In the last 2 decades, advances in neuroscience research and clinical therapies have already had a profound impact on society, and I predict they will have an even greater impact in the future. The Center for Compassion Research Education, known as CCARE, is the centerpiece of our Neuroscience in Society initiative. CCARE aims to use rigorous scientific methods to understand and delineate the neural and psychological basis for altruistic and compassionate behavior. And now using novel technologies like functional MR, brain scanning, and innovative approaches like neuroeconomics, this is possible. CCARE has been supporting the research you're going to hear about in this symposium. We wish to become the premier center in the world for pursuing this kind of study. We also hope to develop new methods for instilling compassionate behavior in people without necessarily spending 20 years meditating as a monk. And I know this is also an important ambition of His Holiness. Although I'm not a Buddhist, one aspect of Buddhism that I do admire is that Buddhism, like science, believes in searching for truth through observation of empiric facts. And if the observed facts refute even long-standing Buddhist beliefs, then they're discarded for better theories, very much like science. This point also has been made by His Holiness on numerous occasions in his writings and actually yesterday. His Holiness has been a great supporter of neuroscience research and scientific inquiry in general. During this symposium, you will learn, among other things, why brain activity in certain areas on functional MR scan in the brain is increased in some individuals during acts of charitable giving. You'll learn that it's possible to enhance pro-social behavior in mice using light stimulation of specific neural circuits in the brain. You'll learn what motivates certain individuals to put their own life in jeopardy in order to save another person. And you'll also learn about the positive effect of CCARE's Compassion Cultivation Training Program on promoting compassionate behavior. CCARE is the brainchild of Jim Doty, who's sitting right here and who's going to say a few words shortly. Jim is a neurosurgeon, a Stanford professor. He's an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. He's the founder and director of CCARE, and it was his idea to form the center. Jim is one of the main reasons His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, is spending today exploring the scientific basis for compassion and altruism with a group of international scientists whose work was funded by CCARE. Jim will tell you some more about CCARE and the research projects. Please enjoy the symposium, and thank you for your attention.
How are you? We're great, yeah! Thank you for spending your day with us and my friends. And thank you, Dr. Steinberg, colleagues, guests, and those who are visiting with us on the web. Before we begin, though, I would like to acknowledge and thank all of those individuals who have helped in organizing this wonderful visit by His Holiness to Stanford and all of the associated activities, including our incredible volunteer corps, many of who have been helping you today, and I thank them so much because without you people, none of this would be possible, so thank you. It's been a remarkable 3 years since what was originally begun as an informal dialogue with some of my colleagues based on my own interests in understanding the complex human qualities of compassion and altruism from the creation of CCARE. More remarkable still is that not only is His Holiness with us today, but that he is a passionate supporter of this work, having given the largest personal donation he has given to a non-Tibetan cause to support the work of CCARE. And fundamentally, without his support of this initiative, CCARE would not exist. So thank you again, Your Holiness. As many of you know, and as Dr. Steinberg has alluded, His Holiness has had an interest in neuroscience for over 2 decades and has maintained an ongoing dialogue with those who have sought to understand how contemplative practices affect the brain and its function. This dialogue has led to extraordinary insights and has been fundamentally responsible, I believe, for the amazing interest among scientists throughout the world in this new emerging field. While His Holiness has always had an interest in neuroscience and science of the mind, his fundamental message that he has carried to the ends of the earth is the importance of cultivating compassion if our species is to survive. Our dialogue today will focus on this topic. Before I begin, though, I would like to tell you a bit of a story. And this was a story that Richie Davidson told me. And Richie, some of you may know, is one of the pioneers in the field of contemplative neuroscience who has maintained this dialogue with His Holiness for greater than 2 decades. And when they first went to India to begin this work, the tool at that time that they were using to measure activity in the brain was the electroencephalogram, which I think most of you know what that is. And that iteration of that device that they used at that time was actually like a shower cap that you would put on the head, and it had all these electrodes coming out of it. So imagine what that would look like to this group of monks who they're going to test who have never seen anything like this before. So when this cap was put on, they all started laughing because it had been explained to them that this was going to test and examine emotions and how the brain works and some of these complex things, potentially like compassion and things of this nature. And the scientists, of course, made the assumption that the laughing was because they thought the sight of this was funny. What they were laughing at, in fact, was the naivete of the scientists because they knew that it's not here, it's here. When His Holiness speaks sometimes, he talks about afflictions of the heart. I would suggest to you that each of us has wounds to our heart that most oftentimes heal very quickly. But for most of us, I think, there are wounds to our hearts that last with us a lifetime. But it's not the wounds that we have, it is our lot and is what makes us human. It is what we do when we feel the pain of these wounds that defines our humanity. And ultimately will define and determine the fate of our collective humanity. The chain of causation that has resulted in ecologic catastrophe, global warming, poverty, war, these are not external events external to ourselves. I submit to you that they are problems of the human heart. While science and technology offer great hope for many things, until this technology is focused on afflictions of the heart, I do not believe that there is hope for our species. Our interest at CCARE has, as Gary has said, is to use the remarkable tools available today to understand these complex qualities of compassion and altruism. And today I am honored to present to you the initial efforts at Stanford of this work. Our conversation today will be moderated by Arthur Zions, the Andrew Mellon Professor of Physics and Interdisciplinary Studies at Amherst. In addition to being a visiting professor at a number of the leading academic institutions in the world, regarding his work on parity violation in atoms and the experimental foundations for quantum physics, neither of things I have any idea what they are exactly. He has lectured extensively. He has lectured extensively on the relationship, more importantly, between the sciences, humanities, and meditation. He is the author of the book Catching the Light and co-author of the books The Quantum Challenge and Goethe's Way of Science. Since 1977, he has served as scientific coordinator of the Mind and Life Institute Dialogues and on contemplative neuroscience, of which His Holiness has participated on multiple occasions. Before I give you Arthur's Ions, I would like to give His Holiness a baseball cap from CCARE. And now I give you Arthur. Thank you again so much.
Allow me to add my welcome to this conference today, during which we'll explore together the science of compassion and altruism, and also hear about the creation of a training program intended to cultivate compassion. Each of us knows firsthand the real significance of these two, of compassion and altruism. We have received the compassion of others and have extended ourselves compassion to those around us. Surely many of us would not be alive today except for the compassion and altruistic behavior of those who have cared for us. In rare instances, a person's compassion and altruism reach beyond the individual instances and seem to embrace a wider community, or even humanity in general. These are the great souls who embody and exemplify our highest ideals for what it means to be a human being. They carry not only their own suffering, and not only that of an individual close to them, but they seem capable of carrying the suffering of many, sometimes of a great many. How do such individuals arise? Or more modestly, how do we cultivate greater compassion and altruistic behavior generally? And what role can science play in helping us to understand and develop these prized dimensions of our humanity? Yesterday, the Dalai Lama spoke to the central importance of compassion and altruistic behavior in our lives and society. He spoke of how, in the last few years, scientists and educators are turning their attention from material development and well-being to inner or mental development and well-being. Today's conference is the expression of that shift, redressing an imbalance between the inner and outer dimensions of our lives. The neglect of our interior or mental life in favor of mastery of the physical world is shifting, and science is no longer seen as opposing, for example, spirituality. The Dalai Lama has written, "With the ever-growing impact of science in our lives, religion and spirituality have a greater role to play by reminding us of our humanity, and there is no contradiction between the two." Today, we'll go deeply into the biological and psychological foundations of compassion and altruism. And during the course of the day, in 4 sessions, a remarkable group of researchers in the fields of psychology, neuroscience, education, and even economics will speak about their research and that of others as it bears on our theme. We have the great privilege of not only hearing from them, but also from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who has been an advocate for the cultivation of compassion and altruism throughout his lifetime. He is one of those whose concern and care has extended far beyond his narrow circle of personal relations. So that when he speaks about the compassion and altruism of this conference, he does so not only with the authority of deep Buddhist practitioner and scholar, but he also speaks as one who has come to embody and to live a life of compassion and altruism. Theory is here truly joined in practice with His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. We are profoundly grateful to you that you are with us here today. Thank you very much. So each of our 4 sessions will last about 50 minutes to an hour. The first part of each session will be a set of presentations to His Holiness, 5 to 10 minutes in length, depending on the session. And we've set this up in a way that you are really intended to imagine that you are in His Holiness's living room. This actually happens. Over many decades, he has hosted scientists in his private quarters, and we come together in a situation not unlike this, in an intimate context, to spend time together, 5 or so days together, speaking about themes such as compassion, altruism, and even quantum mechanics and parity violation. So imagine that this is his living room. You're listening in on a conversation between a group of scientists who are presenting their research results. He's asking questions. We're engaging together in that conversation. So the stage is set. Let me introduce the first group who will be speaking to our theme for this session, the role of compassion in education and wider societal context. First of all, of course, there is His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who, since he was 15 years old, has been the secular and religious leader of Tibet, living in exile from his homeland since 1959 when he was but 24 years old. He's also the winner of the 1989 Nobel Peace Prize, and as we all know, a tireless advocate for the cause of Tibet and the teachings of Buddhism. He calls himself a simple monk, but I think we all recognize the complexity and depth of his life belies a superficial interpretation of what it means to be simple. And yet our own Oliver Wendell Holmes has written about another kind of simplicity, which I think is characterized by His Holiness. Holmes writes, "I would not give a fig for the simplicity on this side of complexity, but I would give my life for the simplicity on the other side of complexity." I would say that in this sense, His Holiness has achieved the honored status of a simple monk. He will be interpreted when necessary by Geshe Tumten Jinpa, who is himself a great scholar and practitioner of Buddhism. He is also adjunct professor of religious studies here, adjunct professor of religious studies at McGill University, and visiting scholar and executive committee member of CCARE here at Stanford University. Jinpa. Next, let me introduce Professor Linda Darling-Hammond, Professor of Education here at Stanford. She has argued convincingly for the crucial importance of equal access to education and has emphasized the crucial role of those who teach and therefore of teacher quality. Professor Darling-Hammond has been named one of the nation's 10 most influential people affecting education policy over the last decade. Linda, thank you. The last member of our group is Professor Phil Zimbardo, who is Professor Emeritus of Psychology at Stanford and past President of the American Psychological Association, a prolific researcher and author who has studied most recently Everyday Heroes, about which we'll hear more. Phil, thank you for being here. So before we begin, I'd like to invite His Holiness to make any opening remarks that he would like to in welcoming you all and in anticipation of our theme for today concerning the research into compassion and altruism. Do you have anything you'd like to offer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, a person now more than 75 years old, when I born on this planet, they almost now starting Second World War, 75. Then more violence, that also in China. And then during Second World War, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 nuclear bombs actually used on human being. So nuclear physics, one of the, I think, great sort of the advances in science as well as technology. So the tremendous sort of development, science and technology. Of course, there are other benefits also in there, but it also brought unthinkable suffering. And even September 11th event. See, using civilian aeroplane. And that aeroplane also, because the large, full fuel, and use for destruction. Few thousand people killed. So science, technology, and development of science and technology alone, no guarantee whether really bring happiness on this planet or not. So I do not think technology itself or science itself is eventually show us some kind of guarantee it will not go destructive way. No. Because technology, science, using by human being. So ultimately depend the user's way of thinking. The user full of hatred and also I think mixed with fear. Then these things become destructive. So ultimate sort of guarantee these, new findings, technology, and this marvelous sort of technology and science, in order to become constructive, they ultimately depend the user's mind, emotion. Then look the user's sort of nature. We human beings, from birth, always anger, hatred, no. I think the whole life, from the beginning of birth till death, I think a major portion of our life, I think more involved affection, friendship, trust. Isn't it? Even you want a sound sleep, your mental state peaceful, happy, better. Full of fear, full of anger, even sleep, you can't get well. Isn't it? And food also. Beautiful food in front of you, but the person who's going to eat that full of fear, full of hatred, even the taste. So that may not sort of they get.
May not experience the taste. Enjoy the taste.
So our whole life, the peaceful mind, closeness feeling each other, is the foundation of our happy life, useful life. So then, of course, all these religious sort of traditions, major tradition, usually I add major, that means a tradition with certain philosophical sort of background, not simple sort of worship something without philosophical sort of background. That's something different. So major religious tradition all carry the importance of practice of compassion, forgiveness, tolerance. However, these sort of tragedy happen while many people pray. So prayer alone will not get guarantee. Of course, I'm Buddhist. The Buddha, full of mercy, compassionate person. And then according to theistic religion, the God, full of compassion. But that's not sufficient. Bring real happy world. So ultimately, responsibility relying on our own shoulder. I think here Buddha made very clear. I simply show you how to achieve permanent happiness. But after all the responsibility on your shoulder. Buddha stated that. I think that's quite a scientific way. Buddha never say, if you pray me, then everything will all right. He never said that. So, and then on top of that, the large number of people, in real sense, not a believer, just religion take as a tradition or custom like that, not much serious. So then, one way we really need the human beings' sort of attitude should be more because of the positive, responsible. And prayer, religion, also there's a limitation. So ultimately, we ourselves have the main responsible. So, and also, everybody have the potential of these positive things. So now, in order to make clear to people, ultimately, peaceful life, happy life, much depend on inner quality. Usually the people just say, now I think they G8, G20, all matter of money. No organization, I think at least at government level, I think no organization who really paying more attention about fundamental sort of human values. Nobody. Only religious people. But there's a limitation. And many people don't care what religion say. So then, as a Buddhist, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, 3 refuge summary. Now we need 3rd refugee. That's science. So if science say, oh, compassion is rubbish, not much sort of useful, then hopeless. Isn't it? Through science means through research, through investigation, through experiment, some concrete result come, concrete sort of evidence come. So that's very, very powerful. And science, I think till later part of 20th century, mainly is to concentrate on our external things, matter things, not sort of pay attention about scientists themselves. Scientists, human being, isn't it? Scientists also, you see, suffering, fear, doubt, or too much competition. I mean, so I think those greatest sort of scientists also, you see, may experience sleepless nights, many sleepless nights because of anxiety, because of some other things. So therefore, now, you see, seems later part of 20th century, now scientists really begin to look, what's the mind? What is self? What's the real ultimate source of inner peace? So it is really wonderful, really wonderful. So I always was telling people when they explain when to make aware importance of compassion or peaceful mind, I always rely on the scientific sort of finding. So it is really very, very important. Now the science research, I feel, I always expressing, is two purposes. One purpose, simply extend our knowledge. What's the reality? Another purpose is, out of that knowledge, how to bring maximum benefit to individual human being, to community, to the society, or to sort of humanity, to the world. So two purposes. So now these research sort of work, your sort of famous sort of university, and also the Wisconsin University, and Emory University, as far as I know, these three universities actually now involving this work. I'm really grateful. So that's my view or my thinking. That's all. That's all. Nothing.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Thank you. I think that the work at those three universities probably benefited by some of your encouragement and presence. So thank you also for helping them to see the importance of these themes for science. So we're going to begin our conversation and session with two short contributions. First from Phil Zimbardo, and then from Linda Darling-Hammond, about 5 or 6 minutes each. And then that will be the basis for a conversation until the next session. So I'm going to invite then Phil to begin with us. Thank you, Phil.
Okay. Well, I want to begin, Your Holiness, with, hello.
Oh, yes.
I want to begin with a greeting, a good morning greeting from another beautiful day at Stanford University. And I'd like to lead the audience in a good morning, Your Holiness.
Sound techs back there, can we have more sound, please, for Phil Zimbardo?
Hello. Hello? Hello. Okay. I wanted to begin with a greeting.
Still more sound.
Hello.
You want to go up to the...
CCARE, 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 donate to CCARE, CCARE. Okay. Since the audience is engaged, I wanted to begin with a good morning greeting on another beautiful day at Stanford University, and I want to lead the audience in a resounding good morning, Your Holiness. Good morning, Your Holiness. Great. So I'm honored and privileged to lead off this day of dialogue you'll be having with my psychological colleagues, with educators and neuroscientists, many of whose research is being supported by CCARE, and I'm proud to be on the board of CCARE. In this little time we have together, I'd like to do three things. I want to start with a provocative, maybe challenging question. Is compassion enough in a world filled with evil? Is traditional compassion enough? Does compassion not have to be socially engaged? And in fact, does compassion not have to be transformed into heroic action? Secondly, this is a group that I've organized called the Heroic Imagination Project, whose mission is exactly that. How do we go beyond compassion, which is really the highest personal virtue, to heroism, which is the highest civic virtue, requiring action to change suffering, but also to change the causes of suffering. And lastly, I want to present some new research funded by CCARE. It's among the first research to explore the nature of heroism and altruism. And curiously, there's a lot of research on evil, some of which I have created as a mad scientist in my Stanford laboratory. But there's almost no research on heroism. So I just want to begin with that question of traditional compassion means you put yourself in the moment to share the suffering of another person. But do you not have to have a socially engaged compassion to try to prevent suffering, to try to deal with evil, of bullying, of prejudice, of terrorism, of war, of poverty? And so that's a question that in our discussion I'd like you to address. Secondly, we have started in San Francisco a nonprofit organization called the Heroic Imagination Project. And the idea is, how do we empower ordinary people to start on the journey to become everyday heroes? That is, to take little acts of kindness, of sharing, of mindfulness, to help change the world for better. How do we get people to put their best selves forward in service to humanity? And we do this in part through education. We're developing courses in our local schools in San Francisco and Palo Alto. And when we know something works, then the virtue is putting it on the World Wide Web, sending it around the world, teaching people how to be wise, effective, compassionate, and mindful heroes, especially our young people. But we're also stimulating research. We want to have heroism as part of heroism ideas, and compassion as part of corporations. And lastly, public engagement, to become a health hero. If you stop somebody from smoking, you save a life. It's exactly like jumping in a river to save a child drowning. If you are eco-hero, we're encouraging young people to take the environment back from the elders who are destroying it. Well, doing that is doing a heroic deed. Disability heroes, people who are disabled themselves, who not only rise above their disability, but use it in a positive way to improve the lives of other people. So this is the kind of thing we're doing. And a little research I'd like to present very quickly. So this is a survey research using the techniques developed at Stanford by the knowledge networks. And essentially what we did is a national probability sample of 4,000 Americans, and the way they set it up, this controls for all possible variables. So 1 out of 5 people we surveyed at these 4,800 qualify as heroes. A hero is somebody who takes action on behalf of another or in defense of a moral cause, knowing there's a cost or risk. See, altruism is heroism light. There's minimal risk. Thirdly, it's you do it voluntarily. And go ahead, I'm sorry. And the hero does it not only voluntarily, but without expectation of a tangible reward. You don't do it for the money, you do it for the virtue. And so what we have discovered is to be a hero, you need certain opportunities. So that if you live in an urban area, you're much more likely than if you live in a rural area, and you're least likely to be a hero if you live in the suburbs, because nothing bad happens in suburbs. Education matters. The more educated you are, the more likely to be a hero. And the reason is that education makes us aware, sensitive to our surroundings, to other people. The other thing that's amazing is volunteering matters. 1/3 of the people who are heroic also volunteered significantly, almost 60 hours a week. And it goes both ways. If you volunteer, you're more likely to become a hero, but we also discovered once people are heroic, then they're more likely subsequently to become a volunteer in their community. Males are more likely to be heroes than females, but in our sample, this is really military, people in the military. When research by Alice Eagley shows that when you take away the physical courage part, women are as likely or more likely to be heroes because they are more likely to set up heroic networks. The most amazing finding we have is that race matters. Blacks were 8 times more likely than whites to have engaged in a heroic deed, and Hispanics were 2 times more likely than whites. And we're exploring why. What is the causal mechanism there? Is it that they're more compassionate, that having suffered or being aware of suffering? And I think most importantly for us is if you survived a disaster or personal trauma, then you are 3 times more likely to be both a hero and a volunteer. And we think that's where compassion comes in. What does it mean to be a hero? In this sample, 72% reported helping another person in a dangerous emergency, 16% reported whistleblowing on injustice, 6% reported sacrificing for a non-relative or a stranger, and 15% reported defying unjust authority. And the amazing thing is none of these 800 were national media heroes. They were really silent, modest, everyday, humble people. And our Heroic Imagination Project is trying to amplify the voice of those quiet heroes.
Did you do the research only in one country?
We just started. It's a really good question. We just started in America, but we'd love to do it around the world.
Oh, that's good.
If we get the money. If we get funding, we surely would like to replicate it.
Yes, that's a practical thing.
Little practical. Jim, where are you?
Yeah. Your Holiness, Linda will be next.
It's nice to see you again. I think that this is a great place to start, this question of heroism. And on the way to heroism, we need to figure out how to help people be able to engage in concern and caring for others on a daily basis. And how do we do that? And I think my question for you is, can we teach compassion? I think some of what we know about this suggests that, yes, there are some ways that we can help people develop compassion. First of all, the way we learn initially is through modeling, through what we see other people do. You mentioned yesterday your mother as a model of compassion and altruism. And so to provide that for most people, we need to think about how to help parents and caregivers and teachers learn how to be mindful of children, how to see them as whole human beings, how to tune in to what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and be able to be caring and compassionate so that the child experiences that firsthand. In the work we do with teachers here at Stanford, we actually develop as consciously as we can that mindfulness about the child. I teach a course in child adolescent development. And one of the things that students do is they have a project where they look at the child from all angles. They talk to the child about what he's thinking and experiencing and feeling. They shadow the child in the school, follow him through his experience. They visit the home, they visit the community. This sort of notion of beholding that Arthur and I talked about yesterday, really trying to understand and then be able to empathize with and relate to and draw out the experience of the child. I think that's a foundation. And then how do we teach children and young people to be mindful of who they are and who other people are, and be able, in working with other people, to take their feelings into consideration, to be able to take a step towards heroism in being able to understand how their actions affect others and how they can actually help others. And there are wonderful curricula that have been developed to develop the child socially and emotionally, that are being tried all over the country in a variety of schools. And in this teaching, children are taught to be mindful of what they're feeling, to make choices about how to act on those feelings that will be pro-social choices that are helpful to others, whether you're feeling anger or anxiety or competition, all of those things you mentioned that cause us to behave badly to one another quite often because we're not reflective about it, and we haven't learned strategies to engage with others in more productive ways. And then there are a set of activities and exercises where children share with each other. How does it feel when you have this experience? How would someone else feel? What could you do to help someone else feel less stress, be more supported, even skills for resolving conflict? And what we're finding when schools implement these strategies is that not only do children become more secure in themselves, more responsible for themselves, but they become more socially responsible. They engage in some of the activities that Phil was talking about earlier, volunteerism, reaching out, resolving conflict, and their academic achievement goes up. And that's probably because when you get to experience life as a whole person, and you're not continually responding to those anxieties and conflicts, you can develop all the parts of yourself to a greater degree. The third thing is that there are some schools that are infusing this set of concerns in the life of the school as a whole. Some of those are schools that explicitly attend to spiritual development, like Waldorf schools and others that have that mission, but many are public schools that infuse community action in the work that children do, ways that they can have a good effect on the community, taking up collections, engaging in educating people in the community about health, around other issues, community service, expected and supported for children so they become responsible, and making social responsibility part of the expected learning. So we have a little school that Stanford started, for example, in East Palo Alto, which is one of many schools that have habits of mind and habits of heart as part of the expected development of the child. And they're actually given feedback and graded in every class on their personal responsibility and their social responsibility. How are they making the life of the community better in the responsibility that they take? And when children have that experience over and over again, and it infuses the whole life of the school, they come to see that as what it means to be in the world. They come to think about it every day. It's not something that happens occasionally. And when they graduate, they'll often reflect on the fact that when I first started school, I didn't understand what it meant to be responsible. I didn't understand what it meant to help others. Now, I can show that I'm socially responsible in all of these ways that I've developed because the school is attending to it.
Thank you very much, Linda. Your Holiness, we'd like to spend a few minutes now in conversation. And yesterday you spoke emphatically about the importance of education. Lyndon Darling Hammond is one of America's foremost policymakers, you could say, with regards to education. If you were going to take one thing, select one thing as a recommendation to her and to American education generally as a as an advice, if you will, from you to us, what would it be for education?
Of course, it is much easier to see the faults and difficult to find answer. I don't know. I don't know. But I think you mentioned you see some school carry some special sort of education about social emotion or these things, and some school not that I think Tibetan and the Konga and the love there the traditional Muslim Koranyama Shun Labda Chimbeko to the Shinga Yomaris. Janda the Digi Lojo Dreyagi Katori Lalin Gangi most chung Simba Inza that the Lojo Yangi Labda Digi Gazero Kazistandua. The Megan Zola any di chane kochik mandang enezu kartuga the di ande shimjuki chayna mana.
His Holiness' question is this. I don't think he's referring to the SCL program in general, but to this specific school in East Palo Alto that you gave as an example, where there's this special program of habits of mind and habits of body. You gave the example of a boy who said that when he graduated, before he joined the school, he did not understand what responsibility meant. So His Holiness' question is this: has there been any research, comparative research done on the effects on the personal life and social relations by graduates of this particular school versus other schools that does not have that kind of program?
Well, there has been some research done generally on schools like this, not this.
So, for example, like in Phil's research, he gave a lot of statistics,
Right.
statistical analysis. So something like that would be quite nice.
So there was a meta-analysis of 200 schools that had put in place programs like this, and they looked at what happened over time, and they found that there was a significant decline in violence in those schools, significant increase in students' self-concept and feelings of worth in themselves, significant increase in students engaging in pro-social, volunteer, and other kinds of activities like that, and an 11% increase in academic learning as well.
I think that's the proper way. We cannot sort of introduce Kasoda nationwide in Sasoda. These certain new ideas or new thing cannot sort of whole nation or something. So first, few school as a sort of experiment, sort of
Few schools,
pilot project, right?
like a pilot project, yeah.
Then after 5 years, 10 years, what differences? Then 100 school, 1,000 school, and one state eventually can adopt using these new additional sort of curriculum like that. And strictly the secular way. This is how I feel. This is how I feel. And then perhaps when the mindfulness
So, for example, some of my colleagues tell me about the beneficial effects, discovered as a result of doing research on the effects of mindfulness training. So maybe in addition to SCL program, some of those contemplative components could be added as well, and then again done some research.
Yeah, and in fact, there are some schools that are doing both of those together, where there's mindfulness training and the broader curriculum. And there's some very good evidence that that both allows students to calm themselves, to think more clearly, to work with troubling emotions, anxiety and other things that get in the way, and anger that can come up, as well as then to move towards these more pro-social outreach to other people. And so we've got about a decade of research now that reinforces the positive benefits of those, and we're already a few thousand schools in to this kind of curriculum across the country. But it's not as well organized as it might be if we had, more general support for it. And we need a view that children are more than test scores, which is a problem.
Just as His Holiness asked me, is this research limited to the United States? And I said, yes, it is now. Have any of these programs been transported to other countries, especially countries like Israel or China, or countries where there is either conflict or a big population, I think, waiting for these kind of programs?
I think that some of these impulses and strategies exist in other forms in some other countries, but not in exactly the same form as they've been developed here. But there are schools in a number of places. I was recently in Singapore, where there's a very explicit effort to develop the spiritual side of children and their ability to be engaged in these ways pro-socially as part of all of the school activities. And so in some places, that's really infused into the expectations for what school is about.
Yes, please.
Also, the way of presentation, the value of compassion is, of course, the social engaged strategy, the Chandal Bharvata. My one sort of emphasis is practice compassion brings inner peace. That immense benefit to oneself.
Yes, absolutely.
That, I think, you see, every people, everybody, you see, they take care about one's own well-being. So the practice of compassion immediately brings inner strength. So that reduces fear, and with that you can communicate with other people much easier. Then second, your health improve, peace of mind, as it brings your body element more nature balance. There's too much anger, too much sort of fear. These some scientists even told me literally some kind of eating our immune system.
Yes.
This may be at social engagement. Mil pingri sagda, mil pando chawar sadigi, me dar ya kasuri pando sha yungor da kwando yungor mos. Da mil chamzir so chamzir gomba yina mil pamba so ma sebe rangile sem kiwa luta yare sa di shekung sometimes.
His Holiness's feeling is that perhaps sometimes in the social emotional learning curriculum, emphasis may have been more on one's responsibility towards others, how to treat others. But one component that could be added on is actually the personal benefits that the individual oneself gets from these kind of pro-social, engaging in pro-social behavior and being responsible for others and being compassionate towards others. So that in fact has a much greater benefit to oneself as well. It's not simply a question of how should one treat the other, but in fact it is in one's own interest that that kind of behavior and way of thinking should be cultivated. That perhaps need to be added.
And in fact, in a lot of these cases, you start with yourself. You start with being mindful of yourself. A lot of children live in very stressful environments where they're besieged with things that can create severe anxiety, and just to learn to calm oneself in a contemplative way, to take note of how to detach from some of that anxiety, the feeling of loving kindness to oneself as well as to others is absolutely essential, really, for the survival and then the further development of children. And when we ignore that at their peril and at our own peril.
Because sometimes there is some kind of misunderstanding. Showing compassion, love for other, that means it's sacrificing yourself. This is not the case. Actually, I often telling people, according to my own experience, the more taking care about other, the first beneficial to oneself. That's very clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that I think is the important. Otherwise, the
because
it's reciprocal dynamism between compassion and heroism. In reaching out to others, it benefits you as well as others. And that's why I think we need that link to inner peace, but also taking action on behalf of others.
That's right.
His Holiness's point was that otherwise people may deep down feel that, yes, compassion may be a wonderful virtue, but I need to take care of myself first.
Thank you very much. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to draw this session to a close. I hope you can all sense the energy around this topic. Thank you both, Phil and Linda, for your wonderful presentations. We're going to make a kind of fast shift here while our two presenters are going to step off stage. 3 more will be joining us. Let's thank them very much.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.